Hey, I'm Roberta Blevins, and this is Life After MLM, a podcast where we work to end the stigma of failure in an industry systemically designed for you to fail. Join us as we dive into the real-life stories of survivors, experts, and advocates to debunk the common myths and fallacies of cults, scams, and multi-level marketing. A quick content warning. In this episode, we talk about toxic diet culture. Please be advised that topics may include mentions of weight loss and gain, examples of fat bias, and discussions on disordered and restrictive eating. Please use your own discretion if any of these are difficult or triggering topics for you. Thank you. Welcome back to another episode of Life After MLM. Today, we're going to be talking more about toxic diet culture. It's important and you guys need to hear it. So today we've got Jennifer DAmato, and she is an intuitive eating counselor and coach. I am so excited to talk to you. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
I am so excited to be here. I really am. This is amazing how you have just opened up this platform that you have to invite this discussion in. I love it.
Thank you so much. The more I did research on multi-level marketing and the more people reached out to me and asked me like, why, or why is that happening, or how come, or how did we even get here? The more I started looking into different things like toxic diet culture and making those connections and reaching out to people like you and saying, we got to talk about this. Will you come on the show? Because it's really, really important. And, if it's coming across my feed, it's probably coming across your guys' feed too. And I've got questions, which I know you've got even more. So it's important for me to have these discussions. And I'm just so thankful that you're here to educate us today.
I love it. I love how you even mentioned, like, how did I get here? Which I think that is such a question I get from clients. Like, how did I end up here? I didn't think this was the path I was taking. I thought I was doing the best thing for my health. And how did I end up here? And I think that's something where when you discover the answer is when all the work begins.
Absolutely. So let's start with how you even got here. What is your story? How did you decide to become an intuitive eating counselor and coach?
Yeah. So, I think my story is fairly typical, where I grew up with diet culture just being so pervasive, right? Like everybody's on a diet. 17 years old, I thought I need to start, shrinking the size of my body. My thighs are too big, just living in that headspace. Puberty's awesome and really just kind of screws with us again when diet culture just surrounds us. You watch your parents and people that you admire always dieting. So first diet, 17, really struggled with my body image. And then it just sort of continued from there into my 20s. Nothing ever stuck. I literally can say I had the thought of, I suck at this. Like, I'm the worst dieter. I can't keep up with this. I just can't keep weight off. Had a bunch of babies. I have 4 daughters. So I had a bunch of babies and just literally probably for the first time allowed myself to eat normally, but of course beat myself up and I'll lose the weight after, all of that. Well, in my 30s, I was approached by a friend about macro counting. And I started I was sold as a lifestyle. This is a lifestyle. You don't have to diet again. You get to eat. Well, that turned to shit real fast. I was tracking every single thing I ate. Now, at the same time I'm doing this, I'm working out 2 to 3 hours a week. So I'm losing weight and I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. I get hyper focused and then it starts to not come off as easily. So I think, I got to tighten this up. I got to get more restrictive. So I do. And then I broke. I absolutely broke. I had become so obsessed with everything I was eating, doing. I was exhausted. I was angry. I had no sex drive. I don't even think people talk about that enough. I was the most miserable person when I hit what I thought was the goal weight. And I thought, this is it? Like, you're telling me this is what I've been striving for my entire adult life. Just fell into this place of sadness and almost a grieving process. And at the same time, all of this had been going on. I started a coaching program to learn about how to coach others. And I'm going to help other women discover this, process and all of this. but I didn't want to sell weight loss. Like something in me even then was like, I don't know, like I didn't feel right that I could tell another human being like they needed to lose weight. Like that wasn't my place, but to build healthy habits, because I had in my own head, I'm just building healthy habits, when in reality, I was just starving. So I went through this coaching process, and in the midst of all of this, when I finally hit that breaking point, I hit a breaking point like physically, emotionally, but I also hit a breaking point because I had built a business helping other women. So I had already read actually the book Intuitive Eating. I really think I read it with a very different lens. I was using it as a diet. I went back and reread it, started really diving into what is intuitive eating. Then I discovered I could actually be an intuitive eater and help other women do the same thing. That the whole reason, it wasn't me, I wasn't the problem, it was the diet, the restricting the whole time. So I actually pressed into the pro certification for intuitive eating counselor. I have my degree in psychology, so I qualified for the counselor part, which was really exciting and literally changed my entire life. How's that for a summary?
That's amazing. And I love that you have that psychology degree, because I've talked about it before. I feel like most of my body issues growing up, very similar to you, always saw the people that I love dieting. My mom was on everything you could ever imagine, all the time. She was always on a diet. And yeah, like I've learned that the majority of those issues are all in my head. They're all psychological and mental issues.
Yes. I always say that, that we have to address our thoughts first. We want to go right to, well, tell me what to eat or how should I be eating? And even like wanting to heal our relationship with food, we want to go to the food, but we have to address our thoughts. I mean, the reason I became, went into psychology and got my bachelor's there was because I've been always fascinated with the brain. And I do believe one of my philosophies is that we can change our thoughts. We absolutely can change our thoughts. We've done it so many times in our life. We believed one thing. I always use the Santa Claus example. I won't share it on here necessarily because I don't know if someone's listening with little kids around, but there was a time you believed something and then you didn't. You can change your thoughts. And when we work on that part, honestly, the food stuff comes a lot easier.
Absolutely. And we see those really restrictive beliefs all over social media, all of them. It's really wild to me. We see it so much in multi-level marketing because, again, obviously it's about the bottom line. It's about convincing people that they are broken and that you have the answer to fix them. When, maybe we aren't not necessarily broken. Maybe we're just a little dented and we don't need a scam to fix us. We just need to listen to ourselves and have real conversations.
Yeah. And talk about the biggest scam, the $70+ billion scam that we live under, which is the diet industry and weight loss industry. You can kind of use those interchangeably, but $70+ billion scam that's been going on as long as I can remember.
Yeah. We jokingly say like all the time, like follow the money. What's the loss rate of diet culture? It's very staggeringly similar to multi-level marketing.
There's some different studies out there, and I'm talking actual scientific studies, that anywhere from 2 to 5% of people will lose weight and keep it off if they've done intentional. And I want to be clear about that. Intentional weight loss, which is a diet, right? We eat a certain way, we restrict foods, and it doesn't matter what one it is. I don't care if it's a program or a lifestyle. Oh my gosh, the air quotes are going to be strong today. That any of those 2 to 5% of people. And what happens is that's what you're being sold. And I think that's where a lot of the commonalities between toxic diet culture, weight loss industry, and MLMs, right? You're sold the 2%. And even with studies with weight loss, you're given the information that happens at the beginning, right? Just like my own story, right? You hear about the beginning that happens. And that's probably true for MLMs, right? At the beginning, people are interested in all this stuff is happening and you're getting so excited and traction and building your social media. It's the same thing with weight loss, right? So you're doing this diet. And at the beginning, you're losing weight. Why? Well, because you're not eating enough, but you're losing weight, you're getting results, and they sell you that part. They don't have these long-term studies that actually show you after 2 years and beyond, the amount of people that have gained weight back and then some. And I'm not even addressing all the other effects, the negative effects that come from weight cycling, changing your weight set point, all of those other things. They're not sharing with you what happens in the long term. You can go, like, if someone is a Google fanatic listening, go look up even The Biggest Loser. I think people can access, there's a lot of studies. I know you need certain permissions, but go look up The Biggest Loser long-term study, and you might have your eyes opened for the first time going, wait a minute, these were people we idealized, right? They were put in our face. I mean, I don't know a lot of people who haven't seen, The Biggest Loser, right? They hadn't seen that show, and we praised them and we thought they're amazing. Look what they're doing. And when you look at the long-term study and those who even stayed in it, because a lot drop out, oh my goodness, I could get into so many things, but they gained weight back, and some even more than they had lost. And then they have all these other health markers, the things that are important, like our heart, our cholesterol, our blood sugar, all of these things get negatively affected by the weight cycling.
Wow. Yeah. It's just, wow. It's really fascinating, actually. Yeah,
it's
really
fascinating
like,
and also
wow.
like sad and harmful and dangerous and all of that, right? And I know we kind of talked about this, and I always go to, all right, so why? Like, why do we enter into something that if I gave you all this information and said the diet's going to backfire? Like, I always have my clients, like, they can look at their own timeline, since they started dieting, and actually prove without a shadow of a doubt that diets don't work. But why do we do it? Like, why do you start in the first place if you know? And even if you watched, maybe it was your mom or your aunt or somebody in your life, they did the same thing, right? They did the Weight Watchers and the Nutrisystem and all this, and they kept having to do it again and again and again. Why? I personally believe one of the greatest factors is because we live in such a fat phobic society. You are maybe not necessarily concerned with being fat, gaining weight, being in a larger body, but you are definitely concerned how you will be treated if you are. And I think that to me is like that deep root, because I didn't share this part of my story. When I was losing all this weight, people were like, I mean, it was a daily occurrence of how amazing I looked, and compliments, and just showered with praise. And look at you, so dedicated, and your body, and amazing, and ooh, what size jeans, and all of these things. Since I gained the weight back, and I'll tell you, and then some, I have not received any compliment or praise about my body. In fact, when I share about my body, it's criticism, and you're not strong enough, so you just didn't have willpower, if you just stopped eating that thing. Like, that's what happens. So people are so fearful, and rightfully so, of how they'll be treated in a larger body.
Yeah. I think it's really important to understand that the word fat is not evil. It is a descriptor, like tall, short, blonde. It's not like fat as a negativity and like an insult, right?
Right.
We all have fat, and that's part of our life. It's a normal occurrence. The fat phobia is something that I'm breaking, even as somebody who does and has had a larger body and has lived in a larger body. And even now, I feel that stigma. I've been doing intuitive eating, and I've had a lot of personal issues that have happened in the last 2 years that have affected my mental health and my home life and all kinds of things. And I've lost weight, not because I was trying, but because it happened. And 100% I get those compliments. And for me, it's not a compliment. Like, I'm like, oh, thanks. Yeah. Uh-huh. But for me, it's a reminder of like everything I've been through in the past 2 years and everything that was hard. And I know to the outside perspective, it's like, oh my God, what has she done? So good. But for me, it's like, oh my God, thank God I'm still here.
Yeah.
Thank God that I'm still kicking and still breathing every single day, because there's a lot that's gone on in my life that people don't know about. I try to keep my personal life private. And yeah, so even getting those compliments, because my friends really do think they're complimenting me because they also live in this toxic diet culture of fat phobia. And, oh my God, what size jeans are those? Again, I hate scales. I hate the numbers. I don't participate in any of that. For me, I know that I've lost weight just because the way things fit, or gained weight because of the way things fit. And that's okay. I'm about fixing my brain and fixing my relationship with food so that it's not a trigger for me anymore, so that I can enjoy that slice of cake and not feel like I'm a bad person, or, oh, well, now I'm going to have bloating in the morning or anything like that, because that's very toxic. And, like, I spent 40 years of my life hating myself, and I don't want to spend the next 40 hating myself. So
the long-term effects that we're not talking about the negative self-talk, right? Yes. Think about that, because we have this underlying stress all the time. If we're constantly beating ourselves up, if we're constantly feeling bad about what we ate, if we're constantly saying, I'm the failure here, then we are literally keeping our stress level. I always say it's the things you can't see, the stuff going on inside, that's having a greater effect on you than what you're eating. We need to address the thoughts about food and those thoughts about our body. I always say, as it relates to food, because we have such a hard time separating the two. I mean, they go together, but not in the way we're taught. So the way we're taught is you are what you eat, right? How many times have we heard that saying? So if I eat foods that are listed as bad, unhealthy, that's not good for you, how do I feel about myself?
Right.
It is directly related, because I think about how I thought about myself when I was extreme dieting, when I was highly disordered eating. And I really thought I was better than everyone else. I was losing my crap. I was tired all the time, was definitely not the best version of myself. I seriously took a nap every day because I couldn't function. But I'm better than you because I only eat foods that are good for me. I know no one can see these air quotes. They're like crazy out of control, because we're taught pretty early on morality of food, right? We're taught really early that there's good and bad.
Absolutely. I remember literally sitting in the 80s. I was born in 81. So I was in kindergarten. So it's 86, 87, sitting on the carpet in my kindergarten class, learning about the food pyramid at age 5, 6 years old, and what was good and what was bad. Thanks, Reagan administration. But that's what it was. And it was well, you have this, you have that, and you have to have it this way. And I just, from that early of an age, it's a core memory. I remember this day, and I was in kindergarten when I was introduced to this.
Yeah. And if it wasn't in a school setting, it was at home.
Oh, it was always at home.
If it wasn't something you were being taught, you were being taught. I mean, you were surrounded by it. And you think about, especially those of us, so I was born in 79. So those of us who grew up in the 80s, I mean, the idea right now, we laugh at it, that eggs were bad.
Oh my God.
Eggs were bad. And of course we lived through, 1984, 85, when fat was the most evil thing you could possibly eat. So we took all the fat out of our delicious food, and yogurt. Oh, poor yogurt. I feel for yogurt. Fat was taken out of it. And what did we do? We go, here's all the sugar, here's all the salt, because we still want it to taste good. And now here we are living in the land of keto, where everyone's give me fat. It is ludicrous. Again, you follow your own timeline, but then go and follow the diet timeline over history. I mean, I'm not even getting into stuff from 1920s, world wars and all of that, because you would just fall on the floor at what people are doing. And then of course, it came right in with how beauty standards, it's all mixed together. How we viewed certain foods over the course of your lifetime should make you go, something doesn't seem right here. Again, I'm going back to that. Eggs were bad.
I mean, I remember that. I remember my mom being
It was on Time Magazine. Do you remember? It was on Time Magazine.
Cholesterol. Oh, yes. Eggs have so much cholesterol. It's so bad for you. Don't eat eggs. Don't eat eggs. And then in the 90s, we had that entire incredible edible egg campaign to undo all of the bullshit we had done in the 80s.
I know. I know. Do you know, I actually was having a conversation with a client recently because finding a full fat yogurt is like a needle in a freaking haystack. It is almost impossible. And, this is something that she desires to incorporate into what she's eating. And she can't find what she wants because that part's still stuck. You'd think, with the keto craze, which you probably shouldn't get me going on that. But with the keto craze, you'd find more of these full fats, but you're not. And eggs, oh my God. I'm like, I have a picture of myself kissing an egg because I feel that eggs are probably one of my favorite proteins to have. And I grew up when they were bad. I grew up most of the time where we didn't buy eggs. We had to have just oatmeal at breakfast. So I think go through that timeline. And maybe if you're wanting to be like, all right, so I need to look at this, objectively, great. Just go back and track for yourself what you remember coming out for diets. Just go look at it. Try to be as objective as you can, stand back. And then underneath that little timeline, put your own. The diets you've done, what you've tried. And then I even, my clients, it's a little bit easier to walk through this where you kind of track what happened. Because if diets worked and you lost the weight, you'd never need another one again. Right? That's as simple as it gets. You'd never need another diet again if diets worked, right? I mean, you brought something else up earlier that I want to make sure I go back to because I think it's important, if that's okay, where the body that we're in, I think something that, again, is dismissed is our genetic blueprint. Like, you do have a genetic blueprint. Yes, you may have manipulated that with years of dieting, right? Weight cycling, that yo-yo, right? Back and forth. But you do have a genetic blueprint. I would say if you need proof of it, it's your feet, right? Just look at your feet. We're not sitting here trying to manipulate the size of our foot on a daily basis. Our feet are our feet. Our hair color, though, we do make maybe adjustments here and there, but you have this genetic blueprint, your eyes and your hair color. So does your body. And we fight it and we put this pressure on it and we manipulate it so that we actually live in a place where we're not even sure what it's supposed to look like. And then we go to where to find that? We look outward. Well, I see these images on TV. If you go look at the average size of a female actress, I want to say she's like a 2 is what the recent research is showing. You go on social media and then you're seeing who's being praised, who's being talked about, right? People in smaller bodies. So you start believing, well, that's what my body is supposed to look like. And then you do all these things, restrict, diet, limit, and you might be like me, right? Obsessively working out. I've got to keep going. And it still doesn't get you there because you do have this genetic blueprint.
Yeah. I remember being in high school. I think I was a sophomore. I was a cheerleader. I was on the dance team. I mean, I was working out probably at least 3 to 4 hours a day because of sports and because of all of this. And I was probably in the best shape because of all of that. I thought I looked great. But I was, and it's not my mom's fault, but my mom has literally always succumbed to toxic diet culture my entire life. She was doing fen and she was losing all kinds of weight because, it's illegal ephedra, which is basically meth. And it was not banned yet. And she was giving me fen. I was 16 years old, giving me fen. I got down to a size 8, which was probably the smallest I've ever been in my entire life, because I was literally starving myself.
Yeah.
And I was 15 years old. And I think that was the first time I really remember being on a quote unquote diet or a program or whatever bullshit it was. And I remember the last diet, quote unquote diet that I tried, where again, it was like fat is bad. And I cut out all fat without talking to any doctor. There was no doctor that was like, you need to be on a diet. Nothing. It was all me. It was me watching TV and the news and who was popular at the time. And just like you said, and me going, you know what? I could be better if I wasn't this. And I went on this no fat diet. And I just wasn't eating anything that had fat in it. Everything I bought was low fat, everything or no fat. and my hair started falling out in clumps.
Oh, yeah.
And I got so sick. And I remember looking in the mirror going, what are you doing? Like, maybe you've lost 5 pounds, maybe. No one notices it but you.
Mm.
Who are you doing this for?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing this for? Your hair is falling out in clumps now. And that was one of them. I was probably 26, 27. And I want to say that was one of the times where I was like, this is toxic. What am I doing? Yeah. What is going on? And I'm sure it wasn't the only, I know it wasn't the only time. I say it was my last diet because it was quote unquote my last diet. But after I had my daughter, I joined It Works. So, then MLM came into my life and it was like, hey, we're still toxic diet culture, but now you can kind of make money off of us too. And I really implore you guys to look at this and to see where you were at in your life when all of these things happened, what your influences were, why you were making these decisions, who was encouraging you to make these decisions, because unless it's a doctor and it's a health reason or something like that, like what is going on?
Yeah. And that's usually I don't want to get into that too much, but unfortunately, if you go to the doctors, one of the first recommendations is, well, lose some weight. There's really not a lot behind that. There's some great resources out there on that topic, but there's a big difference between a correlation and a causation. There may be a correlation with a larger size body, but there's not necessarily, and usually it's very infrequent that there's a causation. And that's really one of those things, where I think we need to, again, be aware of the studies or the information that you're taking in. Who is the one who paid for that study to be done? I know who's asking that. I know I asked that, but I can tell you the women I talk to, they're not asking that. They're like, well, this says I should be doing this. And this says it works if you do this. And of course, programs, again, $70+ billion industry, they have the means to tell you anything they want you to believe. And we believe it because we feel maybe insecure, right? I think we go through that in other areas of our life. Maybe it's as a business owner, it's as whatever the type of career you have, it's as a mom, as a partner. We have insecurities. We have them with our body. They play on the insecurities that we already have. It's like, why do you feel like they're reading your mind? It's because they do a lot of work to know exactly what you're struggling with. Like we've seen, one of the most recent diet programs is Noom. And I am probably the biggest anti-Noom person you'll meet, because they have co-opted. They've taken the language from intuitive eating to market. You know why? Because they know what we're doing. They know we're calling out this bullshit. They know that we are onto the lies. So they're trying to use the language. Actually, I don't see commercials very often. And I have people on Instagram, they'll send me stuff all the time and like, did you see this commercial? Noom is using intuitive eating language, because they know that's now what people are starting to get curious about. Wait a minute, there's another way to live. Because lifestyle, right? That marketing campaign only works so much. Now we have to get in on what's actually the truth, which is intuitive eating, which is not a diet program, which is not a weight loss program, which is really, I always tell people, I can give you the book definition, which is, it's evidence-based, it's this mind-body health approach, there's 10 principles. But what I always say is this is actually getting you back to who you were, what you believed about food, how you approached food before anything ever manipulated it. Anything. Messages at home, Clear Your Plate Club. I do have a lot of clients whose mom took them to Weight Watchers, any of those messages. Are you sure you're going to eat that? Didn't you already have enough today? Any of those things touched it. That's what we get back to as an intuitive eater, is before anything ever messed with it, which I think is hard for people to imagine life without those messages, because they usually start really early on.
And I know that you bring up Noom, and I know that there are diet programs out there that have worked for people. And I don't want people that have had success with these and kept it off to be upset about talking about things that have worked for you. But we also have to remember that, what is it, like less than 5% are that, right? And so we have to understand that the greater scope here is that, yes, some of these things may have worked. And the other thing is, these are not meant to be forever, right? These programs are a short-term thing. I've met people that have had really great results with certain things. And I've met people that have horrible results with things as well. So again, we have to really look at the nuance here and understand that toxic diet culture as a blanket doesn't work for the majority of people. And if it has worked for you, and you are not still stuck in this toxic diet culture and you actually have, gone through it, then we're super, super proud of you. But we also want people to know that it doesn't work for everybody. And that is why we have these discussions. And that is why we talk about this, because there are people out there that are like, but it worked for my friend. Why doesn't it work for me? And we really want to get to the root of what that is and actually answer those questions for you.
Yeah. And intuitive eating is personalized. As much as there's, 10 principles, they're guidelines, right? They do a lot of work, the inner work, right? The thoughts work and thoughts about food and how you feel about your body and all of the messages, right? We just listed so many of them, but it's personal. Everyone has a different story, and you brought up such a good point. Any comparing of self to others can be really dangerous. I think this is a good opportunity to say any comparing self to self is also dangerous. But that comparison, even that, okay, so if it worked for her, I would say, if she's not restricting at all, right? If that person's not restricting at all and their weight has stayed off, it's probably because that's what their body is supposed to be at. That's their weight set point, so great that they really have gotten to that place where they've gotten to their weight set point. They're not restricting. They're not miserable. They're not, going through all that, beating themselves up. Yes. And I think there are the 2 to 5%. Absolutely. But for yourself, if you feel caught up in the negativity, if you feel guilty for eating food, if you actually, I would say a lot of people don't find pleasure, satisfaction in what they're eating, that's where I'd say, all right, you've tried all of this. And most people I talk to, I've heard the gamut, the 20 plus years, you've done all that and it hasn't worked. I know you've been told it's you. It's not. Would you be willing to try something totally different? And that's usually where they're like, is there something different? Like that really we're even taught everybody's dieting. Everybody's trying to lose weight. Everybody's focused on that, which really isn't true either.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Like, what is intuitive eating and what does it even mean?
Yeah. So like I said, the book definition really is this, it's an evidence-based, which is research-backed, right? This mind-body health approach. It has 10 principles. It was created by these 2 dietitians, actually trained under Evelyn Triboli. Elise Resch is the other one. It was actually written in 1995, the book, when we talk about it as the resource. But the way I look at it is intuitive eating is this very personalized process of honoring your health, listening to your body, relearning to trust what your body says is true, without questioning it all the time. Only your hunger level. When you're full. What satisfaction or pleasure, right, from food feels like. What your thoughts are. What your feelings are. It is internal, because think about that opposite, right? Diet culture, diet is external sources, whether it's points or calories or whatever it is. This is internal to you. Like I said before, this is not a food plan. This is not a diet. You're going to love this part. You ready? There is no pass or fail at all with intuitive eating. It is a journey of self-discovery. It's a connection of what it is you need in your mind, in your body. There are 10 principles. I can go ahead and even share those if you think it would be helpful.
Yeah, I would love to hear them.
Okay. So I'm just going to go through them. And I always like to preface it with, they're in this order. They're not always done in this order when you do the work. But there is a method even behind the thought of why they're in this order. So the first one is reject the diet mentality. It's one of my favorites. Excellent starting point. The second one is honor your hunger. The third.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's my favorite because it means you're eating again. Yay for food. The third is make peace with food. This actually can be, I think, one of the most challenging principles because that really means all food and that all food is available to you. That we're working through a lot of those thought messages, right? We are really diving deep in that. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the fourth, which is challenge the food police. Like I wish, like if your podcast, right, we had sirens going off, like that's the point where it's just like, be-do, like there's so many messages. The food police are the worst. And they're the ones bringing in that morality that we talked about, the good and bad, and judging you and shaming you. So learning to challenge the food police is a skill that develops over time and with practice and a lot of self-compassion. Self-compassion is usually the first thing I focus on with any of my clients because of the messages that are going to come up when we address making peace with food and challenging the food police. So those are like, I mean, those are heavy enough, but then we move into the fifth one.
I was even going to say like that whole food police, like you could be living under the same roof as the food police. So every single meal you're having is like, oh, you're going back for seconds. Oh, that's kind of a lot of butter, don't you think? Oh, like you don't need to use so much salt. I mean, I feel like I've had these things happen to me within the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, yes, I can. And I will. And just because you said I use a lot of butter, I'm going to add some more.
And that food police can be external like that. And even setting boundaries, right? We talked about not commenting on someone's body, not commenting on someone's food intake is just as important.
Oh, I mean, right there if someone says something.
Yeah, we like, internalize those messages and those food police become a voice in our head, right? And diets really do create the voice in our head of the police. Even if no one else is around us to say it, if we have not done the work to resolve those thoughts, man, it just comes in, you're questioning yourself, whether it's before, during, or after you've eaten something. The fifth one is discover the satisfaction factor. I love this one because I think most of us have really lost that connection of pleasure with food. We're really bad at it in our culture. Like we're really bad at believing even like food can just be fun. Food can have pleasure and that you deserve to be satisfied with what you eat.
Seriously, that has been like my favorite rediscovery is that like food is pleasure again. It's not punishment. I'm not like, oh, I'm going to have to run off these M&Ms. Like it's literally like, ooh, I'm going to have a whole handful and it's okay because it's about moderation and balance. For me, like just finding pleasure again, as opposed to punishment in food has been wildly changing in my life. And it's been incredible.
Yeah. Do you know what a lot of my clients find when we are focused on that is they've noticed they've really cut variety out of their nutritional intake. When I say diet, meaning what they're consuming, right? They've cut out variety. I had a client recently, oh my goodness, it had been over 20 years since she had made beef stroganoff. And in the work that she had done, she was like, I'm going to do this. It took some, work we had been doing. And she's like, I'm going to make beef stroganoff. And really even to focus on like, is it as good, as you would remember it and all that?
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh. I actually made beef stroganoff that same week we were working on it because I was like, I love beef stroganoff. It's not a fan favorite of my kids. So they just ate the steak part of it. And I was like, screw you all. I'm eating the beef stroganoff. And to be able to incorporate that again was a game changer for her. I mean, the fact that she had enjoyment again literally calmed her whole nervous system. Like even just to be like, wait a minute, I can enjoy this. I can show up and taste it and just take it all in. Now, different from that, because I like to see the distinction is being satisfied, and then also understanding what fullness feels like. So the sixth principle would be to feel your fullness. And usually some people, like, they can really feel hunger signals, but not fullness very well. And then I also have some who really feel when they're full and don't feel the hunger. So depending on where you are is where we focus on first. But again, it's feeling it and also trusting it and respecting it, that when I feel this. The seventh one is cope with your emotions with kindness. And of course, we're talking a lot about emotional eating without judgment, without shame, without any sort of, shoulds. I don't use should or shouldn'ts a lot ever. My clients all know those words are like usually off limits. But to be kind to yourself. The eighth one, respect your body. That looks different for everyone. I'm not a big proponent of the body positivity movement. I think it's really hard for us to get to positive or love, right? Like, I need to love my body. But how can you show your body respect? So we focus on that. The ninth one is movement. They kind of say, feel the difference. Sometimes even the words like exercise or workout have negative feelings and memories. And so I like to use the word movement unless a client's more comfortable with they exercise or they work out. But all movement counts.
I'm not a huge workout person. Some of the things that I do, I'm waiting for like my bagel to toast. I might do 10 to 20 push-ups on the kitchen counter. Just be like, okay, we're going to do this really quick while I'm waiting. I'm like, I got 3 minutes. How many can I do? Another thing is just going for a walk and just be like, I'm just going to walk for 30 minutes. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just going to walk to the end of the road. Today, I'm going to go left. Tomorrow, I'm going to go right. We're just going to walk for 30 minutes. I'm going to walk for 15 minutes. I set my alarm. And when that alarm goes off, I turn around and I walk back. And that's okay too, right? Another thing that I've been doing that's really great is I will just blast music when I put the laundry away. I got the bed full of clothes. I got the bed full of hangers. I got music on and I'm working out. And I got to turn the fan on because I start sweating because I'm working out and I'm lifting all the clothes and dancing around. Yeah. And those are really great ways to add movement without feeling that you're working out or that you have to get in 30 minutes or anything like that. Right. They're just really easy. Here's another thing. Park at the back of the parking lot and just walk to the grocery store. Put the bags on your arm and leave the cart at the door and carry the bags to the car. That's another really easy way to add just a little bit of movement that isn't going to take too much. And again, this is for able-bodied people. If that's not something you can do right now, then that's okay. We work up to it. Not everybody's workout's going to look the same. Not everybody's exercise and movement's going to look the same. Do what works for you and then push yourself. You don't need to, be looking at anybody else. Be like, today I did 10 push-ups. Tomorrow I'm going to do 15. Or whatever. It's a complete personal experience. And it's actually become pleasurable again.
That's what and honestly, I think movement without pleasure is not movement you're going to enjoy. Movement attached to weight loss is not going to be something you want to continue or you're going to ultimately find long-term pleasure in. Movement for punishment, to earn or burn, is something that's going to backfire. So all movement counts. And you know what? You can also rest. You can also say, I'm not going to move my body today. There are many health benefits, and I would even say mental health benefits, right, to movement, even if it is that walk, or I'm a big dancer too, all the time, all day. So I love that. But I also have days where I don't do any movement and there's no judgment or shame attached to that. And again, depending on your story and what's attached to movement, right, attached to exercise, then that's kind of where you might need to go and heal those parts and then invite what feels good and pleasurable. Now, the 10th one, I want to always say, the 10th principle, I think this is where misconceptions come in with intuitive eating, because, I've heard a lot on social media that, well, intuitive eaters just eat pizza and cookies and don't care about what they're eating. And they have no regard for nutrition. That is a lie. We're debunking it like right here, right now. The 10th principle, and the reason it's actually 10th, there's a purpose. It's honor your health with gentle nutrition. You have to remember, there's a lot of individuals who struggled with eating disorders, and they use intuitive eating as part of their healing journey. And that nutrition part can't come first. And I actually don't think for anyone, I think putting it last is very purposeful because you've done the healing work. You've done the work on your thoughts and how you feel about food, how you feel about your body. Then we bring in that balance, right? Where it does, how does food feel in your body? You know, do you enjoy certain vegetables? I was just talking with a woman, you know, we were talking about how we grew up with like boiled vegetables. You know, I always say like until they were dead. I mean, I don't know if you can kill a vegetable, but they were dead, right? They were mush, dead, and disgusting.
I hated Brussels sprouts because my mother boiled them whole.
Oh, but now if you roast it, like, I don't know where roasting was from the, 1984 until maybe 2002 is when I figured it out. Like, wait a minute, you can put these in the oven with a little bit of oil, a little bit of salt, and they taste amazing. Where have
Brussels sprouts are probably my favorite vegetable. There are so many different ways to zhuzh them up and make them amazing.
I love it.
Freaking love Brussels sprouts now.
But inviting that in, right? Having, again, so this is that variety piece, and also considering that your body does have nutritional needs. But remember I said way back when we started this, we want to jump to that part. We want to jump right to the gentle nutrition. But unfortunately, if we do that, we haven't done all the work of every other principle where you actually feel so much more connected to yourself that you know exactly what you want, when you want it, you trust what your body's telling you. So when it comes to inviting these other foods in maybe, or creating that balance, it just feels natural. Like I always hear it, like, this just is coming so easy. Yeah, because you've let go of these rules and rigidity and restriction, that inviting these other foods in, having that variety, honoring your nutrition feels easy.
Yeah. And I have ADHD. I don't hide that at all. And I really find that intuitive eating helps my ADHD, right? So in the past, I would go grocery shopping with a list, and I'd be like, these are the things we're going to make this week. This is what my family wants. Now that I'm single and it's just me and my daughter, like, we go grocery shopping when we're hungry. And I'm like, what do you want to eat this week? She's like, ooh, can we get some mangoes? I'm like, yeah, let's cut up some mangoes and let's get a pineapple. Ooh, that's what we're going to do this. We're going to make some fruit salad. That sounds good. I'll maybe grab a bag of like my favorite beef jerky. I'm like, ooh, these will be good snacks. Get the things that like I'm really feeling in the moment and that I'm really obsessed with my ADHD, that I know I'm going to eat, that I know I'm going to find pleasure and nutrition in. And it's been really, really great. Yeah. And I even find like when I buy the sweets, because I'm like, ooh, that cupcake sounds really good, I'm not actually like looking to eat that sweet stuff. For me, it's more like it's there if I want it, but I'm not tempted by it now. I don't know why. Maybe because, again, I'm not restricting myself. I'm like, if I want the cupcake,
that's exactly it, right? That if you don't, so restriction will always lead to overeating, period, end of sentence. There is no getting around that. Restriction will eventually, no matter what, lead to overeating and or a binge type behavior, right? Always, every time. That is how our brain works. What's really amazing is intuitive eating invites you to honor those cravings. Right? It's a lot easier when you honor those cravings. Diet culture shames you for even having the craving. So, that honoring your cravings is even just sometimes its own work. That what happens when you honor them, and I love that meal planning idea, kind of that's how we approach the week as well. I'm feeding a family of 6, so I do a little bit more planning now, but we really what do y'all have a hankering for? What sounds good to you this week? Does anybody have any requests? And that includes myself, of course, which, I love that when we invite those in, we're not sitting there trying to fill that need in some other way.
Yeah. My current ADHD snack obsession, this is so funny. We just, like I said, we got the pineapple, we got the mango. I cut it up. I put it in my little Snapware in the fridge. So it's all prepped and ready to go whenever I want a bowl. Then I just got some chia seeds. I freaking love chia seeds. I don't know why. It's just like one of my things. And I just bought some like fruit. I got some mango nectar, mango juice, whatever, like a naked juice. And I just mixed it in and I made like a chia gel. And I'll put a nice bowl of pineapple with a couple scoops of the mango chia gel on top. And you can ask some of my friends. I'm like always eating it. They're like, you are so obsessed with this. And I'm like, I just really like it. And it's really nutrient and it helps me with my fiber. I don't have a gallbladder. getting fiber into my diet is really important just for my own gastrointestinal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to add these chia seeds, like I've already noticed that my body responds to it really well. And I'm like, okay, like this was cheap and easy. I mean, a bag of chia seeds was like $9. And I was like, yay! But I mean, I feel like I'm going to have chia gel for like a year. Like there's just so much, it gets so much bigger. And it's been delicious. So if you guys like chia, that's a really fun, easy way to like, I like texture and different flavor combinations together. And so just having fun with your food, bringing back in that pleasure, and again, not restricting or not being like, this is bad, that's too much sweet. Like eat your fruit. Like it's great. Fruit is delicious. That's how you get a lot of water in, a lot of fiber in. And I've been having a love affair with pineapple the last couple months, just because I'm like, yes, this is so good.
I love when that happens too, like when those things, and they ebb and flow and they change, and now not to show up with judgment and not show up with, self-criticism, like, well, why would you want that? Like, what's going on with you? I've actually watched my daughters start to like pay attention to their body. They're all intuitive eaters. I think they're the best I've ever seen, to where they're like, I think my cycle is even going to start. Like, I just notice I can't get full right now. Like I can't, and I want, sometimes it's the salty, sometimes it's the sweet. We all have those different preferences. And then when you honor that without judgment, man, you live a much more peaceful life, and you can just worry about yourself, not what anyone else is doing, which isn't that beautiful, that you get to honor your own body, worry about how your health, your body, without caring what anybody else is doing.
Yeah. And I also love just like how, like you said, ebb and flow. Like sometimes I will plan because I'm like, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make this, and then we're going to do this with the leftovers. And I'll plan a meal, spend hours and make this huge mess. And sometimes my daughter's like, And I'm like, what? I just spent 2.5 hours making this. I just don't really feel it. And I'm thinking, you kid, you know what I mean?
These kids.
But at the same time, like in between those planned meals, sometimes my daughter's like, I just kind of want like spaghetti tonight. Is it cool if I heat up those leftovers from the other night? And I'm like, sure. She's like, is it cool if I heat it up now? Cause it's like 4:30 and I'm hungry now. I'm like, sure. And then when I go to her later on and say, did you want something else? She's like, no, I ate and I'm fine. And I'll make myself my own little snack. I feel like I'm very into like charcuterie boards.
Oh,
but like
yeah.
Personal charcuterie boards, right? So I have like all of the stuff to make my own little paper plate. I've got like, a little bit of almonds, a pickle, some like meat or some cheeses, some little crackers. And for me, like, it's really pleasurable. It's fun to create this like variety. Again, the ADHD is like, yes, the salty, the sweet, the crunchy, the soft, the textures, everything.
Oh, I love it.
It's so pleasurable. And yeah. I can't even tell you how many times growing up, it's like snacks aren't a meal. And I'm taking that back and going, yes, they are. Snacks as a meal is my favorite meal.
Yeah. And when you're so in tune with your body, when you know when you're hungry and you trust that you're getting what you need, and you also trust your fullness, there's a big difference in how you show up with whatever food is in front of you. There are times that I will literally take a bite of something that I really thought I wanted. I took a bite and I'm like, well, this sucks. It's not hitting the spot at all. I don't want it anymore. And I stopped eating it. We had cookies in the house once, and I don't like store-bought cookies. I should know better, but I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. Took a bite. It was like, well, this is pretty terrible to me, and I don't want it. And I put it back. I let people know I took a bite. If you don't want to eat it, fine. We'll end up getting rid of it. And that's fine. But if somebody else wants it, I didn't like it. This is a common occurrence, not like all the time I'm eating food and putting it back, but that if it doesn't light me up, if it's not hitting that spot, I actually will say no. That is as much respect for your body as you can get, where, we're taught early on, eat what's in front of you. Finish what's in front of you. No waste. Children are starving. All of these messages that screw with us right into adulthood. And when you are free from those messages, you literally, there's a marketing term. I don't know, like it's part of intuitive eating, but it's food freedom, because you're literally free. You don't have any of those messages weighing you down. You're second guessing yourself. You're wondering. Recently I asked my own children, like, do we have food rules? Because I teach on food rules so often. We break those down. Part of rejecting diet culture is actually breaking down food rules. And so I asked them, because I'm like, I've never asked them do we have any food rules? And I got a couple of responses where, we can eat what we like. Hell yeah. And the other one was, if we're done, we're done. We can leave food on our plate. It doesn't really matter. I was like, and now I have won Mother of the Year. Sorry, everybody who's listening. It's right here. I need the award. I like the gold star right on my forehead. Like, that's what's happening. Because that to me is the biggest win, because they're going to carry that message, those truths about their body and food into adulthood, just like I carried the negative messages, right? So if I can give a piece of advice, if there's anyone out there who's in a parental caregiver role, let's allow for intuitive eating, because kids are actually naturally born intuitive eaters. So were you, right? At one point you were, but that they actually do trust their own body. And even if you just said, all right, for 1 week, I'm going to try that on and let my kids kind of be the intuitive eater. Like if they say they're hungry or they say they're full, that's true for them. And I know it's annoying when you're like, I just made this whole thing, and then you said you're not hungry, but then you come back 2 minutes later and now, or you said you were full, but then you came back 20 minutes. Let them honor that and see what changes and what happens. Just try it on 1 week. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah. And when I made that meal and she looked at it and she was like, she had like 2 bites of it and she was like, I'm just kind of done. And I said, okay. She goes, what should I do with it? And I asked her, I said, well, are you going to eat it later? She goes, maybe. I said, okay, then put it in some leftover container and throw it in the fridge. But sometimes she goes, probably not. It's probably not going to reheat very well. I'm like, well, then throw it away. Yeah. I grew up with the Clean Plate Club.
Yeah.
And it was like, you have to eat it. You're going to sit there until you eat it.
Yep.
And then the other thing was, oh, you're not going to eat it for dinner? Well, it'll be waiting for you at breakfast. And that created so much anxiety for me, so much fear around food, so much just eat it now when it tastes good, because it's not going to taste good tomorrow in your cereal bowl. And I know my parents they never followed through on that ever, but that threat was always there. And I was always so fearful. And I don't want to have fear around food. I'm trying to break those generational curses. I'm trying not to have that with my own daughter. And absolutely, she is so woke on the food police. If someone says something to her, she's like, food doesn't have moral value. And
yes,
this girl
girl.
is 10 years old.
Yes.
Okay? I mean, she's a little spicy, but
I can't imagine where she would ever get spiciness from. But I love that. I mean, and think about that this really is breaking generations of dieting. And I always talk to women where I'm not here to blame our parents and get on them and make them feel bad. That's not what it is. But what we can do is say it stops with me. And that's what I'm here. I feel like that is the mission I've been called to, is to say it stops with me, and let me help you say it stopped with you. Because when we heal our relationship with food, those other things, whether it's your own children, or maybe it's friends you're around, or grandkids even, because I do work with a lot of women who are older, you have the opportunity to break diet culture completely. Because the thing is, once we stop buying into it, it has to stop. If we don't pay the money, give the time, give our energy, give our soul to something, and I think this is another, right, that parallel to MLMs, it's going to stop. If people figure out the lies that you've been told, then they're not going to buy into it any longer. It's going to cease to exist. That's a big dream of mine. Big dream. I realize that, but I'm willing to take that on because I know what happens with a life of dieting. And I know what happens with a life of intuitive eating. And it's not too late to start. It's not too late to say, okay, I'm done. I can see it's not working. Maybe they did the timelines. They're looking at it. They're just hearing the truth. They're going, I'm done. Even feeling bad about eating food, having food guilt. Oh, food guilt. They're done with it. It doesn't matter where you are. I've literally worked with women 65 and 70 years old who said, I just don't want to spend whatever years I have left feeling crappy after I eat, feeling bad about myself, beating myself up.
Absolutely. I feel the same exact way. And I'm glad that I'm figuring it out in my 40s and not in my 70s.
Yeah.
Because I got a lot of years ahead of me of enjoying food as opposed to feeling trapped and controlled by it.
Yes, absolutely. And again, like I said, it's freeing. It really, and it even makes, I mean, you're talking about something we all are not like, I'm not jumping up and down to go to the grocery store, but dang, it can be more, that can even be more pleasurable when you're not feeling restricted. I can only buy these kinds of foods, right? This doesn't fit, or this is a cheat. Don't even get me started on the word cheat meal or cheat food. Ugh. But you're not, bound by all these rules. You show up and say, this is what I would really like this week, if that's available to you. I know we're kind of speaking in those general terms, like if that's available to you, that you can go to the grocery store and ask yourself that question with a little bit more ease. I just want to be clear that I know that in not all instances that's available to people.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point about accessibility. Like we talked about that before we hit record. And that's another food shaming, right? Like people saying like, oh, McDonald's, that's so bad for you. You know what? We ate McDonald's 2 nights ago and it was friggin' delicious. I got the large fry because I was like, you know what? I deserve it. And it was good.
I know.
It was not bad. I didn't feel bad about it. We had a good time. My kid was above the moon. She was like, yes, McDonald's.
One of my favorite things is canned peas. I grew up eating canned peas. I don't know. My grandmother would put them like even with her mac and cheese. I even had them. People talk about cravings, weird thing. I'll have them with like, I'll make homemade sauce and pasta and I put canned peas. Like I love it. And for years and years and years, I would not allow myself to eat canned peas. They're freaking peas. I mean, goodness gracious, because they came in a can. They weren't fresh enough, which isn't really true. And we're not talking about how products were previously canned, years and years ago. And something I truly enjoyed, I can remember it was probably 3 years ago, I think I finally allowed myself to have canned peas again. And damn, were they the most delicious thing I had ever had. Again, I was like, why did I spend so long shaming myself and not allowing myself to have something that also is easily accessible to me to get those? I'm not stressed about budgets or money or any of those things to get that. There's a lot of shame around this whole other market of, you need to eat organic and you need to eat farm fresh and all this. And you know what, if you have that accessible to you to, your neighbor's giving you eggs. I mean, I give you all the high fives. If you can get the freshest of fresh from the garden, like, you know what, that's awesome. But to shame people who can't or who actually don't desire to do so is really, really going down a dangerous road. I think if we could put all this aside and just choose to mind our own damn business and be kind, I think we'd be doing okay. But
we've got idea.
It's ludicrous. I know. But when it comes to food, there's so much built-in shame. And whether it's organic, whether it's frozen, whether it's canned, whether I'm eating meat or I'm not, or what, there's so much attached to it that this is why if you go back to, I know what I want to do, which most people don't because they've been using this external guide, but I know what's best for me and I trust it and I don't care what you're doing, makes a big difference.
Yeah. You want to know my favorite canned vegetable? I
do.
I love corn niblets. I love them. I love little corn niblets. I don't know why.
Because corn is delicious.
And then French cut green beans.
Oh my gosh. We literally just had these in my house. My husband's favorite side dish is that the one you make at Thanksgiving with the onion,
like the green bean
casserole.
I don't even like green bean casserole, but I love me a can of French cut green beans.
I forgot how good they were because I made the casserole, but then I had leftover cans of this. I'm like, these are amazing. Now I'll tell you, most of my kids did not like it. I did not force them to eat these delicious green beans, even though I'm like, listen, you're missing out. Okay. I think they tried them to make a good judgment. They didn't, it was a texture. Cause there's
same with my daughter.
It's a texture thing, and I'm like, that's fine. There's plenty of other options of something to eat, but seriously, those are so good. Again, canned products, and corn, talk about terrible messaging. I mean, I was, again, deeply immersed in diet culture and couldn't eat corn because I'd be fat like a cow. Literally the thought I lived with. and never, ever would eat corn. I mean, it's crazy to think of it now. And I can laugh at myself. Like I can be lighthearted, but at the time, I literally would have these oh, don't eat corn. You're going to get fat. You shouldn't eat. That's what they feed cows. Don't do it. You're going to be, I mean, this is what I carried around with me for years.
I will tell you, my daughter will not eat canned corn and will not eat canned green beans. But if you throw a corn cob on the barbecue and you grill it up and it gets a little blackened, she will eat the hell out of that. And also my daughter loves fresh green beans, which is like, I figured she'd like the canned stuff. But the way that we do it is we'll clean them up and we saute them in some butter.
Oh, yes.
And then right at the end, about like 5 minutes until they're ready, when they're just starting to get a little soft, we throw in a handful of like the real bacon pieces that you get in like the salad aisle, just some bacon. That girl will like eat everyone's. Are you going to finish your green beans? Are there more green beans in the pan? Like she will eat mine off my plate. Like, I don't even know, but that's a really great kid-friendly recipe. You add bacon to anything and my kid will probably eat it.
Add bacon to anything, period. Let's just do it. But I think what we learned from this is we actually do have food preferences starting at a young age. And if you get immersed in diet culture, a lot of that gets restricted. It's about restricting food, calories, however you're looking at that, whatever you're doing, you're restricting, but you're restricting those food preferences. So what happens is, like I told you, right, it's always restrict, overeat. You usually go to those things in excess. You want them. So imagine if you actually lived your life and every so often you had some canned corn niblets. I love that we're using the word niblets. But that if, those canned peas, whatever they are, and it really is whatever those represent for you. Like imagine if they just were part of your normal eating on a regular basis. Like my client who had beef stroganoff, she's like, I'm going to actually put this in my rotation, maybe once or twice a month. Like I'm going to have it. I'm going to enjoy it again. That you're not, when you get it in front of you, going, and now I'm going to consume it fast and without paying attention or really enjoying it because I haven't had it in so long.
Yeah. So what are some really easy ways that those of us listening today can start, if this is something that we want to do, can start on that intuitive eating journey, like something that we don't even have to go buy, stuff we already have in our house? What are ways that we can sort of move into that space?
Yeah. So I think it's actually going to be something right in your head, because I want to go right to the thought process. So what if instead of labeling foods, good, bad, healthy, unhealthy, because even that label gets us all messed up, you go neutral, call the food what it is. So instead of, I'm having a really healthy salad, say I'm having, greens and some tomato and croutons, cheese and ranch dressing, call it what it is. Start removing the food labels, taking them out, and notice how you feel. You actually can do that with whatever's already in your house, wherever you are, if you go out to eat, if you're at home, if you're at McDonald's, if you're at the grocery store. It's not I'm buying these bad foods, or even I'm buying sweets or treats or any of those things. I'm buying mini donuts. I'm buying gala apples. I'm buying, spiral pasta. Kids love that's what they like. You call it what it is and start removing those food labels. And then just, if you're a journaler, write down what you're feeling about it. Notice, how it makes you feel not to label something. And I would say, if you're like you really want to press into that, write how you feel before, what it was like eating it without those labels, and then how you feel after. And just do that for, I don't know, try it on for a week. I always say that, like, give it a whirl, see how it feels. Did you notice anything? And if you're like, well, I just noticed I don't feel as bad, that to me is huge. Count that as something you're learning. Again, this is a journey about self-discovery. This is pressing back in that. Great. If you learned something from it, maybe you need a little longer with it, because we're so used to it. I hear all the time, well, what if I just say it like it comes out? Yeah, that happens often. So just be gentle with yourself or myself. Nope, this isn't bad, or this isn't unhealthy. This is, and name the food. So we're coming a really neutral approach to start.
I think that's excellent. Yeah. Removing the morality, removing the shame, removing the toxicity. It's an apple. It's an apple with peanut butter. It's not a treat because it's got sugar in it. It's an apple with peanut butter. In fact, I'm going to tell you almond butter is better than peanut butter, but whatever.
I don't know. I'll fight you because crunchy peanut butter, I'm sorry, that smacks everything. So
okay, crunchy, yes, but smooth almond butter wins on that.
I feel a debate coming on, but we'll save that for another time. I'm putting a poll up. That's what's happening. We're voting. I need to hear what people think about this.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but apples with almond butter slaps. It's so good. It's so good.
Now I'm starting to salivate and think I don't have either in the house and it might go on the grocery list just to test your theory out.
Yeah, and another way that I will think of things, I'll say, what has brought me pleasure in the past? I love cucumbers with like fresh lemon and salt. It's just like a fun my dad would make them. He would add apple cider vinegar, and it would be apple cider vinegar and lemon juice and salt. And he just called them like dinner pickles, and they would just go on the table. He'd put ice cubes in them to keep it cold. Very strange. My father was a very interesting man, but they were like little dinner pickles and they just went with salad. And sometimes that's all I would eat. He's like, you're going to have salad? I'm like, no, I'm just going to have a handful of croutons and some of those cucumbers.
Oh my goodness. That's pretty cool. I don't put anything fancy on my cucumbers, but sliced cucumbers out. I just leave them out while I'm cooking dinner. If someone's hungry, they grab stuff. Cucumbers and feta. I got to tell you, that to me is like, oof, I love it. I love it.
So good.
Girl, I'm getting hungry. I can't handle this right now. I'm like, I'm going to need something to eat.
Well, even this morning, my friend called me and she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm prepping interviews today, but I have like an hour and a half to kill. And so we went to breakfast. And usually when I go to this place, I order the same thing. And today I decided, I'm just going to order whatever looks best. And I ended up getting fresh fruit crepes with scrambled eggs and bacon, and it was incredible. And I just ate until my body was like, we're good. And then I asked for a to-go box. And guess what? I get to have more of it later.
I love it. I love it so much. And I can, that's when like you're making peace with food, that you're trusting your body. And I know at the beginning of the work, I'm very honest, it feels hard because you haven't been living this way and you're excited. Like, I want to get there, right? I want to get to what you're saying, but it is personalized, but everybody takes their time getting there, depending on those messages and depending on, what you have available to you to do this work, which means time and energy and stress and all the other things that come with life, right? But it takes time to get there. And it takes that intentionality of doing that work and being willing to break down those rules and tear apart those messages from diet culture and the diet thoughts that you think are true that have actually been making you feel so much worse about yourself.
Absolutely. And then lastly, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was orthorexia, because you mentioned it in the beginning, but without a name. We'll throw up a trigger warning. This episode already has one, but at this point in the show, we are going to be talking about disordered eating. So if this is a triggering subject, just fast forward a couple clicks, and we'll see you on the other side of it. But let's talk about orthorexia. It is disordered eating. What is it? It's not in the DSM-5, so it's not really recognized as an eating disorder yet, but it is definitely disordered eating, and it falls into the toxic diet culture. So please explain to us what that is and how that affected you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that I think it's something that needs more awareness to it, because you're right. It's not a diagnosed eating disorder. However, I actually think we're living in a time where we're going to see it. Very simply put, orthorexia is when you've really become obsessed with everything that is health related. Healthy behaviors become extreme. You will sacrifice other areas of your life in the name of health. So, for instance, I would get up at 3:30 in the morning. Sleep was, and everyone told me that's really not morning. I understand. But I went to go work out, because to get that 3 hours of working out in a day, you have to get up sometimes at 3:30, and I would sacrifice sleep, sanity, time with my family, and of course need a nap later in the day. I struggled greatly with making sure every single macro, which means every calorie, of course, was tracked, accounted for. I would not go out with friends because it's harder to track when you go out. So going out to eat became a struggle in and of itself. Holidays, it was how many things can I use for substitutions? I can't eat those foods. So again, it's this obsessive nature with health related behaviors. And the problem is, like I shared at the beginning, is you're put on a pedestal, you're praised because you are eating foods that are deemed better. They're, especially, I think most people walk around, with that morality feeling. Your body is not only shrinking, you are the epitome of health, except you're absolutely 100% not. I started looking into the connection between orthorexia and body dysmorphia because there's so much body checking going on as well, because again, the extreme workouts and the weight loss and all of that comes with it. And there are some connections being seen of how you start viewing your body, and that it's never enough. It is never enough. You can never quite get there, that even when you had a goal and you thought you were getting there, you get there and it's still not enough. So yeah, all this is happening, of course, in our mind, but the behaviors and the actions and the habits that are created, all in the name of health, all the things that are praised, actually being very, very destructive.
It's really interesting. I'm thinking probably people listening right now are feeling a little triggered about maybe some of the health and wellness MLMs that they've been a part of that really glorify this. And the first one that comes to mind is Beachbody. And the next one is Optavia. Those two really, really strongly with the restriction, the counting. Yeah. But Beachbody specifically with those stupid little rainbow containers.
The rainbow containers, plus their messaging on workouts. And, there's a whole side of that we haven't talked about that I just will bring a little attention to, of the mentality of no excuses. I don't want to be skinny. I want to be strong. It's really all lies in marketing that keeps you absolutely stuck in that space. You actually have excuses and reasons not to go work out. You have valid things in your life going on that are more important than what you're eating, or, if you go to the gym or not. Like, there are things of greater value. And you know what? You are of greater value than what you eat or how your body looks. Like, I just think, again, there's these side marketing things. And I do think, Beachbody is definitely one. And I had somebody contact me actually about Optavia, like they are right up there, really promoting disordered eating. They're doing it in a sneaky, and I think most of diet culture is sneaky, but it's a really sneaky way in the name of health. And it's actually disordered eating at its best.
So toxic. It's so dangerous. And, they're sliding into our DMs every single day. They're promising things that are not real, that will not happen. The statistics are there for diet culture. The statistics are there for MLM. They are staggeringly similar. I bet we could chart it out and it would be pretty much the same. So the marketing companies, the marketing aspect of this, they know what they're doing. Like, these people are smarter than us. They know exactly what to say. They know the words to use, the images to use. They know the guilt and the shame that they can throw on you. They know exactly how to get you.
They know how to find the
2%.
They know how to find the small percent who have had a longer term. And I would even look at that of how long-term is their long-term, but they know how to do that. They know your weaknesses. They know that you're struggling with how you feel in your body. They know we live in a fat phobic society. They know all of it and use that to come at you. And again, it's when it's done in the name of health, you really do believe, right? You're being sold the lifestyle. What does that mean? Like, have we ever really questioned that marketing, like a lifestyle? This is my life. It's not a lifestyle if it's restrictive. It's not a lifestyle if there's counting, tracking, putting things in containers, that you only have a shake. I mean, listen, if you like protein shakes and you enjoy that, I really do. There's some I really like, and it's a great way to just get some fast protein in. Great. But if you're told you need to substitute meals and this is how your life should be looking, really start questioning, is this really in the name of health? Is this really good for my overall well-being?
Yeah. And I really liked what Dr. Lauren Merklin said in her episode. If you guys haven't seen that one, you can go back a couple episodes, where she talked about ways to take a weight neutral approach to your life. Where really that number on the scale doesn't mean anything unless we're doing some medication doses. And you don't have to succumb to this. You don't have to succumb to like even the messaging of your doctor being like, well, I know your bone's sticking out of your leg, but maybe we should try to get you to lose 5 pounds first. Like I've dealt with that my whole life where it's like, have you tried losing weight? And it's like, yeah, no, I'm here for like this completely other issue that has nothing to do with how much I weigh. It's always been a huge source of contention for me. It always brings shame because of all the messaging in my entire life. Even though I don't feel shame, the shame comes in and says, well, you're going to feel it right now. Yeah. I don't feel it any other place in my life other than that sort of stuff. And that's something that I'm working towards. Like, I know I have my own anti-fat bias because of how I was raised and the things that were said to me and the things that like, I don't want to believe, even though they're true. It has been so much to break through all of these things and to find myself again. And that is why I think it is so important to talk to people like you, people that are educated, people that have experience, people that are doing the work, that are on the ground, that are helping all of these people. It's just something that I've struggled with. And once I realized, just like with multi-level marketing, that this is designed to fail, that this is designed to keep me trapped, that this is designed to keep me mad and hateful toward myself. And who does that benefit? Because it's not benefiting me.
Right.
And once I started to break that up, I knew I needed to talk to people that could explain it better than I could, because I don't have that education. It has been so unbelievably eye-opening. My life has, I don't want to say 180, but it's almost there. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, man, bringing pleasure back into food, going to a restaurant and being like, what do I want to get? What sounds good? What drink am I going to pair with this? How am I going to create an experience? Because I'm all about experiences. I want to look back and go, dang, that was a really fun time. Those tacos were incredible. Let's go do that again, because that brought me so much joy, so much dopamine. Yeah. I'm chasing this dopamine all the time, and I'm actually finding it in the restrictions that the society has put on me. I'm like, what? Yeah. Society's saying don't do this, and I do it, and I'm just like, but that made me happy. Dopamine, it was not bad. Like, it's insane. So I don't know whatever you glean from what I just said in my little tangent, but I'm so proud of us even being able to have this conversation and people listening and people learning.
Yeah, I agree. And I really believe that if we could get this as our fundamental truth, you know, that you actually are the expert on you. I am not. I never tell my clients what to eat. If they ask for a suggestion for like, hey, how do you make Brussels sprouts? Clearly, I know how to make Brussels sprouts. But, you know, other than that, I don't tell them. They are the expert on their body. And we've lost that belief. So when we regain that and believe it as truth, I'm telling you, your entire world, the 180, right? Your entire world can, and it will change. My clients say all the time, it's like we started talking about, you know, intuitive eating, and we're doing that. And when they start trusting themselves in food, oh man, other areas of their life start shifting and changing. And it's like, this is what I'm talking about. This is living into who you really are without all that other messages. Now, I wish we could be immune to it. I totally wish that, you know, we could wake up every day feeling amazing, but that's not reality. But we can have strategies and tools and empowerment to, when those things show up, not stay stuck in them or have them define us long-term.
Absolutely. I love it. I love that we're breaking these stigmas across the board. It's great. It's so great. I love it.
I agree. It is so good. It's so good. And I appreciate that you really have opened up this platform to call out all the lies everywhere, all the toxicity everywhere. Like, that's what you're doing. And I am truly appreciative of that, because I'm a huge anti-MLM fan. Like I have been for so long. And I think it's because I don't like to be lied to. And when I look at that, it is a lie. And when I look at diet culture, it is littered with lies. So I love that you have seen like the commonalities, and that we need to just really call out the liars and bring them to the table. And then hopefully somebody has something to chew on. Hopefully somebody has something to go, hadn't thought about that. huge fan of curiosity. Like, just for a moment, step back, ask yourself some questions. You don't have to land where I land, but just get curious.
Yeah. And the even cooler ripple effect from this is that someone is going to hear this and maybe change things, maybe decide to post about something, break some stigmas, and then that ripple effect will continue and continue and continue.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm so happy that you're here. For everybody who is listening today and are like, yeah, like Jennifer, 100%. How do I get hooked up with you? Where can I find you? I need to follow this woman. She is speaking my language right now. Where can everybody find you to follow and maybe even inquire about your services?
Absolutely. Listen, I'm an Instagram girl. I do a lot of the platforms, but on Instagram, it's very simply Jennifer_health coach for life. And the 4 is the number 4 and actually represents that I have 4 daughters because they are such a heart of this work. So Jennifer_health coach for life. And my website is the same name. It's healthcoachforlife.com. I also have a podcast if they want to listen about intuitive eating and really dive deeper into the work on that kind of platform, because they obviously love podcasts. It's Health, Life, and More for Women. You'll see my smiling face on there. I'm a little sassy, so I think perfect for this listener. Like, if you like the sass and literally me laughing at myself on a continual basis, I do offer free consultations because it needs to really be the right time. And you need to be in the right place to be able to step into this work. And that's why I offer that as well. So anyone listening, if you head onto Instagram or to my website, you'll find opportunities to connect with me. I have lots of freebies, lots of content for you, and a lot of sassy reels right on the gram.
And I love that I am able to present someone that will never suck you into a pyramid scheme because she knows what's up.
Absolutely.
So we're going to do some rapid fire questions, but I'm changing it from MLM to toxic diet culture.
Ooh, okay.
You ready?
I'm excited. I don't know. I've heard the MLM one. So now I'm like, all right, now I got to shift my focus. I'm ready.
What is a word that encompasses how you feel about toxic diet culture?
Pissed. Ooh, that just came out. Did you? Oh, all right. Yep. Pissed. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
That's what this exercise is for. Okay. Absolutely. What is a warning to somebody that you see who is stuck in toxic diet culture, and maybe you want to help them open their eyes and get out of it?
Be kind to yourself. If you notice you're having a lot of negative thoughts, you can't get out of it, ask for help. It's okay.
What is the worst part of diet culture, in your opinion?
Everything that it takes away from you, including your joy.
What is the hardest lesson that you learned when you were stuck in the toxic diet culture cycle?
Oh man, you are getting me with these are heavy. I put too much value on the size of my body.
Wow, I feel that one.
Yeah.
And a positive takeaway.
Oh, good.
From your time in toxic diet culture that you still use in your business and your life today.
Well, that's such a good question. Yeah. I think that I enjoy lifting weights. You know, that's how I discovered lifting weights. It's the movement that gives me the most joy. So I did take that with me.
I mean, seriously, that's my favorite question because I know that like shit sucks sometimes, right? And like you're in these, like, we call it the abyss. You're down in this abyss and you're like, nothing. But there's always a silver lining. There's always one. And sometimes you don't see it until you're out of it and you can really address everything. Mm-hmm. But yes, the fact that you learned, hey, I like lifting weights actually. Yeah. Like I got sucked into this horrible thing, but I found an exercise that I really enjoy.
Absolutely. And I do yeah. think that's the case is, you know, sometimes we can find those little nuggets, I call them, that come from there. So yeah, I definitely think that way about it. I think that lifting weights is the only pleasurable movement I have. I think people who run are the most amazing humans because I don't know how you do it, folks. But I think that's a good thing too, because you beat yourself up a lot less when you can see it that way.
Yeah, we got to have like apple pie at the finish line and there's got to be like serial killers chasing me with knives for me to run. Like I don't do that. I never have. I love swimming. I love walking. I love hiking because like just exploring really cool places. Like those are really fun ways to move and get out of the house and get some sunshine and get some fresh air. And get out of our surroundings that a lot of people probably don't think of as exercise because it's not in a gym and there isn't equipment involved. But I mean, you guys could be doing curls with cans of peas and French cut green beans if you want.
Listen, you and I are just going to dance and go put the laundry away. I think that's all we need in life. Laundry's put away and we've danced it out for the day.
That's absolutely true. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening to Life After MLM. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And follow us on social media at Life After MLM Podcast and my advocacy at The Real Roberta Blevins. You can find all of the links to the social accounts in our show notes. And if you just listened to that incredible story and you thought, oh my God, I have a story just like that needs to be told, hit me up, therealrobertablevins@gmail.com. I would love to have you on the show to share your story and start your journey in life after MLM. See you next time, Huns.